Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pete Bercich's Minnesota Viking postgame show. I'm Tom Moore from BikeFans.com, and with me from U.S. Bank Stadium is Pete Bercich. My goodness, Pete, who is this Case Keenum we saw today?
Well, definitely a tale of two games, and they say you make your best improvement or your most amount of improvement between game one and game two, and for Tampa Bay fans, they don't like Case Keenum. Every time they see him, whether it's with the Rams or the Vikings or whomever, it seems he makes them pay. Now, I wasn't surprised the Vikings won. In fact, I tweeted it before the game. Don't be surprised when the Vikings win. But how they went about winning, that was a surprise. This offense was fantastic. And Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, they were just way too much for the corners of Tampa Bay. Ryan Smith and Vernon Hargreaves eventually had to leave because of a hamstring. And, I mean, you talk about just beating the team on the outside, and it's going to be a long season for Tampa Bay if they don't get some help at corner or have one of those young guys step up.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, you talk about Case Keenum. Obviously, nobody expected a 369-yard day, 3 touchdowns, and a quarterback rating of 142.1, so pretty good. But, a lot of complaints about this Viking offense the last 5, 6, 7 years is, boy, it's all dink and dunk, and it all goes to the running backs. You're talking about, almost 270 of his 370 yards coming from the wide receiver spot. They really opened it up today, didn't they?
Well, it's interesting that you bring up the big plays, and if you look at what they call in the league, in the statistical world, the big play index, which is a summary of runs of 20 or more yards, passes of 25 or more yards, returns of over 50, or takeaways for touchdowns. The Vikings going into this game had 9 of those plays, which is tied for the best in the NFL. So after today, they'll probably be sitting alone. So this has been a big play offense. Now, those big plays have mostly come at home and not on the road, but three interceptions today, badly needed for the Viking defense. I think we saw the best and worst of Jameis Winston, who, when he makes his mind up that he's going to throw a football to a receiver, he throws it no matter how many opposing colored jerseys are in the area. But overall, what a great day. And, it's just fun to see an offense get explosive like that, to get some confidence like that. And I think really outside of Nick Easton, who had a rough day blocking Gerald McCoy, the offensive line looked pretty good too. Protection was pretty good. And it goes to show you, if you give a quarterback protection, I don't care who it is, he's going to play well.
Yeah, and help the fans understand that, Pete. One of the things you said was, we seem to make those big plays at home. What is the difficulty when you go on the road of replicating that? Is it just really the hostile crowd environment, or why is the success at home and not on the road as much?
Well, you go to Pittsburgh, and that's one thing. You have you're getting the elements in the mix. You're on grass. Against an unfamiliar team, an AFC team, like the Pittsburgh Steelers that you play, once every couple of years. There's the 3-4 front. There's all kinds of different things that change. And a lot of it's just being at home and the home routine and everything being familiar. That helps as well. You're used to the surface. You're used to everything. Above and beyond that, it's hard to say. Crowd noise is a factor. Was it a factor today? I think maybe a little bit. I think the Vikings, the fans, I was worried about them kind of sitting on their hands a little bit, because if Case Keenum started slowly, they'd give it the here it goes again. But they marched down right away, scored a touchdown, and Dalvin Cook took over and did a lot of really good things. So overall, it's very, very positive, and you get that snowball started, and Tampa Bay, they got hit, they got punched in the mouth, and they didn't respond right away. So it was game on from there.
It's interesting. Obviously, we're not going to have a quarterback controversy, even though, this was a very close passer rating to what Sam Bradford had in week 1. But this is Sam Bradford's team when he comes back injured. But I will say, from the standpoint, now I think fans realize if you have to count on Case Keenum for a game or two, I think you can. You don't just have to expect he's going to hand off and dink the pass around.
You're right, and you look at the Detroit Lions, who lost the game by a fraction of an inch on a last-second touchdown. So you're going to have a 2-1 Detroit team coming off a very, very tough loss to Atlanta, a very, very good football team, coming in next week. And fans they have short memories. So if you come out next week and don't play well, you have to hang in there, and I think that's a big confidence boost no matter who's at quarterback next week for the Vikings. The defense, they gave up a lot of yardage, but hung in there, and I think did a good job. A lot of different bodies getting in there during the game. So overall, you've got to be very, very pleased with everything, and you got to be happy that you're playing this first Detroit game at home.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I'll tell you, something different for the fans is Dalvin Cook. I mean, you've seen him a little bit more than the fans. They're just getting used to him. 97 yards rushing. I think maybe even more importantly, 72 in the pass game. And this is maybe something the team has been missing the last couple of years. Give the fans an indication of what you see in Dalvin Cook and what they can expect the rest of the season.
Well, for Dalvin, what's been surprising is his versatility, in that he can play all three downs on offense, and that takes a while. I mean, that's a lot. It's a mental load on a running back to be able to know the protections, and he did that today too, picking up blitzes, and he picked up Gerald McCoy of all people on a play action on one down, and so he's contributing in every single way, running, receiving, and in blocking, and doing it in all three downs, and you would expect that to just continue. I mean, he's not the big play running back that Adrian Peterson was, but he's also bringing so much to the table in the form of blocking, in the form of receiving, and you're flexing them out and putting them out wide, on an empty set, and lining them up as a receiver and trying to get them matched up against safeties, and so his versatility is just been fantastic, and I expect more of that. It's hard to stop a guy when he can line up and play so many different positions and do so many different things.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, we talk about Stephon Diggs having a big day, 8 catches for 173 and 2 touchdowns, but when you look at Adam Thielen, I mean, I don't think there's any pass he can't catch, and people have been doubting him since high school in Minnesota, Minnesota State down in Mankato when he was in college. There doesn't seem to be much of a ceiling. This guy gets better every week, doesn't he?
He does, and all he does is catch everything that's thrown to him. I mean, that's the huge part of it. He's as steady-handed as they get. Bradford last year when he got here, he didn't know who Adam Thielen was. He didn't know his background. He didn't care about any of that. All he knew was that Thielen got open, and everything he threw his way, he caught. So it's nice to have that balance. I mean, who do you stop receiver-wise? And, you're going to run into some teams that have a good corner, and maybe their number 2 corner is not as good or not that good, and you'll be able to take advantage of that matchup. So not having a clear, definite number 1 receiver. We know Diggs, and Diggs' thing was speed, but Adam Thielen is shifty enough to be able to get behind people. So great route runner, and like you said, he's a great catch. That long pass that he caught, I mean, that was a thing of beauty. His concentration and him coming down with that football. So the Vikings have a little embarrassment of riches when it comes to wide receiver position. And, oh, by the way, none of the first-round draft picks are out there catching balls all over. It's a free agent and the fifth-rounder who are out there, doing the damage to opposing defenses, and I love that too.
Yeah, and you got a backup quarterback putting up almost 400 yards. And hey, guess what? After next week, they get a Michael Floyd back. So I mean, there's more good news coming for this team.
That is true. That's very true. You have one more game without Floyd, and what is his role going to be when he gets back? I think he's just going to be icing on the cake. He may take some Jarius Wright snaps away. I don't know, but you can't have too much depth in the NFL anywhere at any position. You know what I mean? And this year, it looks like that wide receiver position's pretty deep. The defensive line position's pretty deep. So just got to keep it up and keep this home field advantage going, and win this game against Detroit. It's going to be very, very important.
Yeah, and you obviously a defensive-minded guy yourself, Pete. I mean, playing the sport, coaching on the defense, and it's really a pretty simple game. If you get that front four to get a pass rush on, you get decent coverage in the back end. This team may give up yards, but I'll tell you what, that is a winning success to force these quarterbacks into errors.
Oh, you're right. And one of the things as a D lineman that you want to do is make an offense one-dimensional, and that way you don't have to worry about run fakes. You don't have to worry about certain things. You you can line up and take an edge instead of having to play more head up, and being worried about the run. And of the D linemen, Everson Griffin's obviously had a very good year, but Linval Joseph has just been outstanding. And between him and Eric Kendricks, the middle of that defense has been very, very solid. Teams have not been able to run the football, which is something that they were able to do on us late in the season last year. So thus far, that middle, the run-stopping part of that defense looks very, very solid.
And, it wouldn't be anything if you weren't a Viking fan, and certainly from a coaching perspective, if there wasn't an area that you could improve upon. One of the areas those viewers at home saw was, at times and instances, Mike Zimmer on the penalties. As a coach, Pete, how do you correct that?
Well, a lot of times penalties occur when you're either overmatched or overtired. Today with Gerald McCoy, he's one of those guys where there's very few guards in this league that can handle him one-on-one, and so you have to give him extra attention. Riley Reef had a penalty, but we actually, I think, converted on that penalty when he had the hands to the face. And it's one more thing when you're on the road. It's got to be a focus when you're on the road. Our penalties. I mean, at home, you've got a better chance of overcoming them. But when you get on the road, man, you can't give up 131 yards. And we talked about this last week when you examine that loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Penalties. I mean, that was just that simple. Not playing well. I mean, holy cow, that made that game go south. And you come out today and you play a little more disciplined. We're physical at the corner and safety position. So you're going to get some holdings. You're going to get some illegal contacts throughout the year. But, you look at the big pass interference, one of the ones that Trey Waynes had on Latavius Murray last week. This week, it happens with Deshaun Jackson, and he has that catch-up speed, and he just turns his head around and intercepts an underthrown football. So it doesn't take a whole lot to fix the ills of what the ills of the Vikings were a week ago. They fixed a lot of those today. But getting 3 turnovers is huge because turnovers are momentum, and they come in bunches. So hopefully that is not a mirage, and that's a trend. And if we could be +1 or +2 for the next couple games, we'll be in really, really good shape.
And I'll tell you what, any fan who said my starting potential franchise quarterback's out for at least 2 weeks with injuries, and you say I'm 2-1 after 3 weeks, we'll take that every day, won't we?
Oh, no question. I mean, we've been through this last year, and that was when people started comparing it to last year. That was when I kind of looked at it and said, this is not even close. I mean, your starting quarterback a year ago had his knee destroyed. You lost both your tackles, and oh, by the way, your best offensive weapon went down too after week 1. So we're not even, it's not even close. Bradford will be back. The question is when. When Keenum does this well, a lot of people will think, well, now Bradford's going to want to come back because he doesn't want to lose his job. I think it's going to make him rest a little bit easier and not force it back because you don't want him to come back too quickly. And when he does come back, you want him to stay healthy. So this team took the field today without Bradford, and I don't think they cared about it at all. They did not flinch. They did what they needed to do. They imposed their will on Tampa Bay, who was just a disaster defensively, shuffling guys on and off. I mean, wow, you talk about the tale of 2 weeks, and they took advantage of a Bears team that wasn't ready to play and turn around and look like the Bears a week later. So any given Sunday here in the NFL, that's what it is.
Absolutely. Well, again, great to put a win on the board here with Tampa. That brings us to the end of this week's post-game show. But for the listeners, don't forget to interact with Pete on Twitter at Pete Bercich. Tell him what you think. See if you agree with his takes. And also at VikeFans.com. And for our listeners, tune in next week and the Vikings face those Detroit Lions. If you haven't seen it, it was, in fact, a heartbreaker for them. They lost it. As time ran out when they had the ball at the 1 yard with the Falcons driving for the win. So until next week, for Pete Bercich, I'm Tom Moore. So long, everyone.